Welcome to Global Perspectives. How goes the global struggle against human trafficking? For answers, we turn to Academy Award-winning actress Mira Sorvino, who is the UN Goodwill Ambassador in the global fight against human trafficking.
Global Perspectives with Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator John Bercia.
Welcome to the show, Mira.
Thank you.
So take us back to when you first developed an interest in the human trafficking subject. What was it that compelled you?
I had been asked by Amnesty International to be their Stop Violence Against Women campaign spokesperson. I believe this was in 2004. And under that canopy, one of the issues, because at that time human trafficking affected 79% women and girls. I think the number has dropped to 70% female total, but at that point that's what it was. And I realized that, to my horror, that slavery wasn't gone. It wasn't dead. I thought, Lincoln freed the slaves. It's so naive. And instead, to my horror, learned that it had just gone underground. It had gone from the legal chattel slavery that we had in the continental United States to a vast worldwide network of illicit slavery, forced labor, sexual exploitation, debt bondage, a whole host of different things that fall under the canopy of human trafficking. And was hugely profitable and right under our noses, and no one was doing that much about it at the time. And I met some trafficking survivors, and they changed my life. Talking to them and hearing their stories and understanding the horrendous treatment that they had experienced, the subhuman existence that they had been forced to live, just galvanized my commitment, and it became a priority issue for me in my life.
Could you talk about one of those survivor stories without getting into names and things like that?
Yeah, I can talk about both of those too. I mean, ever since then, I've spent countless hours interviewing survivors across the globe. Like, I've been compiling their testimonies. I generally tape record them and take notes. I don't video them. The original thought was that I was going to write a play based on the narratives. There have been so many voices added to my group and so many new things that I've learned that the play has sort of fallen by the wayside, although I still hope I'll do it someday. But I use their stories and their testimonies in my advocacy, in my speeches, in my testimonies, and I find it's a very effective way in the absence of having a survivor at an event, which is always the best thing. But to have the voices of 20 survivors peppered throughout your speech, the audience all of a sudden gets a perspective on what it's like to be trafficked that they couldn't have otherwise understood. So the first two people I met were both in California. They were both being helped by CAST, Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking. One of them has gone on to become quite an activist herself. Her name is Flor Molina, so she's happy for her name to be used. But she was in Mexico. She was a talented seamstress there, and a local woman who knew of her skills asked her if she'd like to come to the U.S. and work in her dressmaking company, and that she would take care of the transportation, she'd take care of the visa, all of this, and Flor would be able to send money home to her family, and it would be a win-win for everyone. So great, fine. She shows up, and she's immediately locked into a sweatshop with one other person there, one other woman, and they have to work 24/7, no pay, physical beatings and verbal intimidation. She's not allowed to use the showers. She's not allowed to use electricity at night. She's not allowed to use water at night. She's basically kept a prisoner in this place. And the woman is threatening her family if she tries to run away. And one of the things that she said to her, which I'll never forget, was she said, if you run away, the police will throw you in jail and they'll lock you up and throw away the key, because here you are lower than a dog, she said. People in this country care about animals. They have whole societies for the prevention of cruelty to animals. No one here cares about you. And thank God she didn't accept this concept. And one day, bizarrely, the woman allowed her to go to church. And on that moment of freedom, she went to a payphone and made a call and was able to have help and escape. And this woman spent years trying to find her, even going back to the village where she was from, alternately threatening family members and offering to bribe them, give them money if they would give her whereabouts. She ended up with the help of CAST, which is, a real model organization for the help of survivors, to have shelter, to be given legal assistance. She ended up being able to cooperate with the police, and her trafficker was put on 1 year's house arrest, which was a very small punishment for what she had done, but because she was elderly, and I think at that point, because the crime of human trafficking wasn't as completely understood or legislated state by state, she was given this very light slap of the wrist. But Flor was able to thrive, to take English, to go to school, to get her visa for cooperating with the government. There's a kind of trafficking victims visa that is available for trafficking victims in the U.S. if they cooperate with law enforcement. Sometimes they don't have to cooperate with law enforcement. Usually it's a contingent condition. And she's thriving now, and she has become this incredible activist who trains the FBI, who was on President Obama's Special Advisory Committee of 10 survivors who had advised his policy on human trafficking. She's an amazing woman. She influences legislation, bills being passed. She's full of joy and life, and that horrible pain that I saw in her face has really evaporated for this gigantic smile. I mean, the scars of being a trafficking victim never quite go away, but I have seen time and time again of all the survivors that I worked with, this incredible capacity for rebounding and phoenix-like rising above. Like, I'm so floored by the courage and humanity and inspirational character that these people, that men and women that I've met, like they've blown me away by their strength and by their heroism. I mean, many of them go on to devote their entire lives now to fighting trafficking. Instead of saying, okay, I've got this behind me, I could just go back to a normal life, I don't want to think about this anymore, they're not resting until any of their sisters or brothers are until all of them are free. So she was one of the very first two. The second one was this kind of darker story. The second one was recruited by a lady on the street. She was visiting the country. I think she was from El Salvador, but I'd have to check my notes. As a teenager, she was visiting family. And this woman said, hey, do you want to get a job as a housekeeper? You could surprise your family, bring them home like $200 a week. It would be great, it would be really nice. And, okay, but it's a surprise. We want to surprise them. Don't tell them. And she goes to this man's house to clean his house, and he immediately locks the door behind her, rapes her, and turns her into his house slave, sex slave, constantly sexually assaults her, makes her do all the housework. He's a practitioner of black magic, so he draws chalk circles around her, and he's got all these jars of weird, substances all around, and an upside-down Jesus, and says all these spells and incantations threatening her family, and says he knows where they live, and if she ever tries to escape, he'll kill her brother. And she was so demoralized that at one point she said, at that point I felt I had nothing left to give. I had nothing on this earth left to contribute. And the only thing I could do was to keep my brother alive by staying there. So that's what I did. So she, unwittingly was kind of colluding in her own victimhood. She was, basically believing everything he was saying. And, they always use threats to people's safety or their family's safety. And so she was kind of trapped in this cycle of thinking if she could endure it, she was protecting, she was doing something good for somebody she loved. And at one point she tried to kill herself, and he stopped her, and then he made her go to work in a factory also and give him all the earnings there. I mean, it was insane. It was insane. And she was the one whose eyes had this impression, like when I looked into her face, it was like she had been excoriated on the inside, like that someone had just treated her so terribly that there were just, visible remnants of that pain just kind of all around her, and especially her eyes. And I felt like the only person I'd ever met who had a similar expression was someone who was a Holocaust survivor. So it was this, absolute highest level human atrocity that I was looking at, that a young girl, 16 years old, trying to do something good is so terribly mistreated and exploited and abused for years. And twice police officers came to her door, and because they weren't trained to understand what human trafficking really looks like, they would ask her, are you okay? And he was standing 5 feet away, and of course he's looking at her like, give them the right answer, and I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And, you know, obviously there are whole huge sets of protocol on how you're supposed to deal with a suspected trafficking victim. You must always get them away from anyone else in their group that might be part of their enforcers. You have to have a gender-sensitive approach. You should have a female interview them if they're female. You should do it once. You should use modern technology, record it so you don't have to have 7 different agencies coming in and re-traumatizing the person with having them tell their story over and over again. But, you know, one of the number one things that the UN suggests is to give anybody who's suspected of being a victim a period of reflection, and that can be an extended period of time. It could be a month, it could be longer, to give them a chance to cool off from the trauma of being in that captive situation and to gain the courage to trust those around her, to feel that they are safe, to feel that they can tell the truth, that they can speak against their oppressor. All of it. Each story would have corollaries towards policy that I can talk about. Like there's so many.
But when you were in college, just to go back a few years, did you come from a family background of activism, so this is not something that's unusual for you, but did you ever think you would be doing something like this now?
I think it was on my goal list. I mean, Martin Luther King was one of my great idols as a child. And so I was like, if I can become some kind of activist and influence things for the good at some point in my life, that would really mean a great deal to me. So, you know, when I was in college, I did write my thesis about racial conflict in China between Chinese and African students. I couldn't understand how these two groups that had never been competitive, you know, cultures in history, I mean, had almost no historical contact, why there was this virulent outburst of racism and racial outbreaks and fights and accusations and things that I was like, how does racism start? What are the causes? What are the causes that are sort of general, and what are the sort of local, culturally specific causes? And I just, you know, I had at that point this idea in my mind that if you could get to the bottom of it, you could stop it. If you could get to the bottom of prejudice, you could take steps to fix it. And I think on certain levels that's true now, but on certain levels, human trafficking has taught me something else, is that actually, because I always used to be incensed by the concept of otherizing, of taking a person, and I'm still incensed by it, but seeing them as less than human and having certain reasons for that. Like, well, I'm X religion, you're Y. You guys are subhuman. You guys are savages, dogs, rapists, you know, mongrels. We're gonna treat you like that, like you're dangerous or like you're unfit. And it justifies so much terrible behavior. And it foments a complete lack of empathy, right? That ability to see the world from the other person's perspective, to understand that we all share the same heart, the same basic heart. So I, you know, in my Pollyannish way, I was like, wow, if I can find out why this happens, we can stop it, you know? And yeah, there are things you can do to mitigate prejudice. Early education is so important. You know, what people learn in school, what a child learns is super important. But human trafficking taught me that you actually don't have to have a reason to treat another person as a thing. You just need to have a motive, and the motive is the profit motive, and the motive is money. And I have seen the worst instances, the worst horrible stories of people doing inexplicably inhumane things to people just so they could earn money off of them. So the evil runs deeper than just a mindset or an us and them, although obviously those have created many of the great wars in our you know, collective history. There's something broken in human beings that allows them to flip off the empathy switch, and whether it's a societally held belief or if it's just, I'm going to get rich off of you and you are going to serve my needs. And you know, a trafficker will traffic anyone they can. They would traffic a rich white person as well as a poor brown person if they can get their hands on them. Obviously, you know, economic vulnerability makes it more likely that poor people will be trafficked rather than wealthy people, but wealthy people can be trafficked too. It's just opportunity. And obviously certain conditions create enormous opportunities, such as migration, such as conflict. You know, that's something that we're seeing an enormous amount of now with all the crazy migration as a result of the instability and conflict in various regions of the world. those populations of people moving pell-mell, trying to get away from something, are extremely vulnerable to being trafficked. And there's evidence that there's now systematization in refugee camps on the recruitment and enslavement of children. It's becoming organized. So it's quite horrific and disgusting, you know, and I think people need to become more aware of it. There's, you know, the estimates now are over 30 million people living in slavery, which is the highest number in recorded human history of people living in slavery today. You know, Kevin Bales likes to say that it's the lowest percentage in human history of people living in slavery, but that doesn't really do much comfort for the people who actually are slaves right now. I do like that positive perspective that sort of maybe culturally we are moving somewhat away from acceptance of slavery, but it's growing, you know, as a criminal enterprise. All the same groups that do drug smuggling, drug sales, weapons sales have moved into human trafficking. But you can human traffic at the giant organized crime level, or you can do it on the mom and pop level. You can traffic your own kid in your own room. And that's one of the things that people don't understand, is that when the word was first used, people thought, well, trafficking, it sounds like there's movement, there's traffic, it's like drug trafficking. You can be trafficked in your own room and never leave your house. You could be trafficked just across the street, or you could be sent halfway across the world. As the head of Europol said at the Luxor Forum on Human Trafficking right before the Arab Spring and the fall of the Egyptian presidency, he said, you know, for him it was very basic. If you were being made to perform services, be they labor or sexual, and you felt that you could not walk away without harm to yourself or your loved ones, that's trafficking. Like, that was the simplest definition, was if you couldn't leave without the threat of harm to yourself or someone else, you're trafficked.
I think that makes it more tangible, but what advice do you offer to someone who wants to help but is confused by the eruption of so many organizations now that deal with human trafficking compared to 10 or 20 years ago? And I'm hoping that most of those are legitimate, but I can't help but think that some of them probably aren't opportunistic. How do you sort the good ones from the bad?
Well, I mean, obviously in terms of like their economic feasibility, there's always Charity Navigator. There's websites that you can go to check their financials to see if they're actually corrupt or if they're really a good not-for-profit. I think that you should look at your own skill set. Like, what do you have to offer? What do you feel like compelled to offer? Are you a lawyer? Are you a writer? Are you a translator? Are you a teacher? Are you a social worker? Everybody has their own specific skills, and those could lead you to figure out how you could best help. Like, you can volunteer your own services to work with survivors, or you could become an advocate pushing for the passage of stronger laws. You know, Florida just moved from a B to an A on the Shared Hope International state ratings list this year. So they've gotten their legislative system, you know, kind of ship-shape. There's a few areas still where they could work a little bit, but they're doing quite well in terms of the laws. But if you like working with children, if you're horrified and specific about, you know, child sex trafficking, well, then there's groups like ECPAT, which is the End Child Prostitution and Trafficking. If you work in the hospitality industry, there's something called the Code of Conduct that ECPAT sponsors, which basically is a way for hotels and travel authorities to become signatory to this code of conduct that allows them to train their employees, to spot trafficking as it's happening on site, to report it, and many lives have been saved because of this new way of monitoring people. And, you know, usually hotels are bastions of sex trafficking. I mean, the concierge can get you a boy or a girl if you so request it. This is kind of flipping that on its head, saying that, no, we're going to be the tower of non-trafficking. We're going to help prevent slavery on our watch. We're going to send the bad guys to jail, and we're going to save the kids or the people who are being, you know, forcefully exploited. And by the way, for children, you don't have to prove the use of force, fraud, or coercion in sexual trafficking. Any commercial sex with a minor is essentially human trafficking, which is really important. And you know, Florida has rightfully taken away the criminal responsibility of a minor in any commercial sex charge, and now is allowing expungement, which is super important. it's super important that that actually happens, that when like a minor was formerly arrested for prostitution charges, now under the way that, the enlightened way that we look at it, we see a child in commercial sexual exploitation as the victim, and the John and the pimp are the exploiters, are the criminals. And I would also say that Florida could up their penalties on the John side a little bit more than they have them now. But the problem is a lot of these kids from like the past decade who were arrested on prostitution charges, nowadays we would see that, oh, that was human trafficking, and we would arrest the people around them, not them, but they were always the easiest person to collar because it's very easy to prove they were caught in the act. And for some inexplicable reason, police have had a long-standing habit of letting the John go and saying, go home to your wife and kids, we don't want to ruin your life. And then taking the child whose life they're contributing to ruining right then and there and putting shackles on them and making them go to jail and serve, time, or, it goes on their permanent record. So I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but like if a kid was trafficked and they were arrested and then they get out of the life with the help of some great organization, and they go to college, and then they go for job interviews, and they've got their third round of job interviews at some big corporation, and then they do a criminal background check. That one mark, that one thing saying that they were arrested for prostitution, kills it. They will not be hired. Their hope of having like a white-collar job, advancing themselves, like leaving it behind, is dashed because of that criminal record. And so that's why expungement is super important and needs to be really put into practice rather than just being an available option. It needs to be vigorously pursued.
Do you feel as if we're beginning to turn the tide on this scourge? Because some years ago, the estimates as to how it would grow over the next 20, 30 years were frightening. And now, I don't know if they're still on track or if it seems like we're slowing down the growth of it.
I don't think we're slowing the growth yet. I think it's growing, but we're starting to have the tools to fight it. But because it's a subterranean activity, it's going on kind of under our noses. I think that we have some more success stories. We do have more victims and survivors coming to light, and we have better policies, and we have tougher laws, so that we're starting to end, at least here in the U.S., we're ending the sort of cycle of impunity for traffickers some of whom switched from drug or arms trafficking, like gangs would switch from drug trafficking because trafficking girls was much more lucrative. You could sell the girl again and again and again instead of one time with a bag of cocaine, and you would most likely not be caught and punished. Well, that hopefully is changing, and we're getting more people collared and convicted and put in jail for this, and getting higher and higher penalties for this. But we're just starting. I'd say we're just starting to tip the scales towards the hopeful side. But I don't think the figures have really changed very much in terms of the worldwide expectancy. If this was 2 years ago from Louis C. DeBaca, our former ambassador at large, State Department on trafficking, he said that the current figures that only 1 in 100 trafficking victim would be discovered and rescued at this point. So 1% of people are being taken out of it. Some of them might escape. Some of them might find some other way out of it or age out of it. But in terms of the outside world discovering them and helping them and getting them out, it was 1%. So I think we're still around that estimate right now. But I think that, there's great organizations like, Shared Hope is like exhaustive legal information about every state and about nationwide policies and about ways to implement them. PolarisProject.org is an excellent organization that used to do state ratings. Now they've sort of stopped doing that, and they're focusing a lot on the data that they get from the National Human Trafficking Resources Hotline. There's a hotline that you can call if you're a victim. Maybe you guys can post it in a Chiron or something later. And they also have a text line. You text "Be Free," and that's a way to get directly in contact with the hotline. And they've had a lot of victims come forward. They've rescued a lot of people through this, but they have data on the percentage of people, and more Americans have called in than non-Americans. So our human trafficking problem here is more American citizens than non-American citizens, which is interesting and frightening at the same time.
Well, those are great suggestions, and I'm afraid we've run out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much for joining us today, Mira Sorvino. And thank you. For Global Perspectives, I'm John Bercia, and we'll see you next time.